All right, so we'll jump in. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Ed Craig. I get the honor of leading the IJIS Emergency Response and Communications Advisory Committee. So I always start by, and I know it's been said, but thank you for everybody here and online for what you do. I know we talked about reclassification and all those things. I'm a firm advocate for it, but so I just want to take a moment and say thank you for that. I know this panel. I'm going to give them a moment just to introduce themselves real quick. So probably what I'll do, and for those of you that happen to be at the last IJIS committee, I got to chair a committee and I literally did the introduction and went, go. For a little while, I only had to jump in to kind of corral them. I know technology is a big thing. We could probably talk about it for the entire day. Some of you in the room would be very interested, and some of you would go, can we go on to the next subject, please? But so let me step back for a moment, give everybody the opportunity to just real quickly introduce yourself. The Jeffs that are at the table here, they'll make it easy. And if I could ask you, Jeff Wobbleton, to please start.
I never heard Jeff quickly and be quiet all the same time. Just the way he said, go and we'll take over from here. So, buzz off for safety is all I gotta say. Is that, yes, I am Jeff Wobbleton, and I was gonna do something. Yeah, thank you. How many people have been in the industry 10 years? Should be there. 20, 30, 40. So yes, 40 years in the industry. I believe both of us started. We both were in the state police, Maine, Maryland. So we've been in kind of the business for 40 years. So I do come from Arlington County. Anybody want to come see innovation? Let's see this. I'm trying to remember Jeff
Jeff Bruns. I've not been in the industry nearly as long as probably most folks in the room. I have been on the public safety side in fire and EMS in Prince George's County for about 17 years, which is kind of where I got my root. But I've also been a technologist for over 20 years and love building things. So this was a great introduction. We're a startup, 3-year-old startup based out of Baltimore, and our mission is addressing language access. So specifically 911, when you encounter speaking callers, we're thinking about the right balance between technology and human interpreters, because I'm sure everyone in the room has great stories to tell about the language line and the voyances and the legacy kind of language providers. We're trying to turn that upside down and use innovation, use standards, use interoperability, and find standards-based ways to still make sure you're just clicking one button to connect, but bringing all of the suite of technology solutions into a workflow that simplifies as opposed to hinders. So happy to be here.
Sebrina, if I could ask you to introduce yourself, please.
Good morning. My name is Sebrina Jackson. I am an operations supervisor and tactical dispatch supervisor with Nashville. I've been in the industry 21 years, all with Nashville, the bridesmaids capital of the world. I have worked every disaster we've had in Nashville since 2020. I'm a little bit of a Black widow, but it's forced us to look at different things and different ways we can do things differently, particularly since the Christmas Day bombing.
Thank you, Sebrina. Brad.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Brad Flanagan. I am the operations manager in Pitkin County, Colorado. We're home to a little community called Aspen. And you know, I've been in the industry for about 15 years, but technology has really come into my wheelhouse and in my world when I started realizing that we had some real challenges that couldn't be solved by throwing more money at a problem or throwing more staff at a problem. And it got me involved at a pretty high level into NINA's committees. So I'm part of the Development Steering Council for NINA, and I am chairing a committee called Future Think, where we spend most of our time looking at what the next 5, 10, and 20 years in the industry are going to look like, and have those dreams to start preparing people for those eventualities and those possibilities.
Thanks. So thinking about technologies, as I said, we can talk about a lot of things, but I'm going to ask the panel to, in their opinion, what do you think is the current or near term? I don't want to go out 5, 10, 15 years yet, but the near term technologies that are either affecting or can help 911 today. And Sebrina, since I'm going to go to you first for this.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I can hear it better, but I just didn't quite hear it.
Sure. Where's Chris now? It's talking about the bottom of my pocket here. Okay. Sabrina, we're looking at what are some current or near-term technologies that are starting to trend in public safety that can help the public safety industry do its job or enhance the abilities that it has. So just your thoughts on what you've seen or heard about.
I think right now AI, and we have to look at that big. It's AI is coming to the forefront. It's been around a little bit for everyone else, and now we're looking at it in terms of what it can do for us in a bigger way. We're working in Nashville on adding AI to what we do now. We have a virtual workforce where we work from home as well with our non-emergency calls. So those type of things. And we also have where we have portable laptop radios. So we can move we have if we have to bug out and go from our center to somewhere else, we can pull those radios out and go. So we're looking at different things like that. I still can't get my APX Next radios. I've asked, but they're a little bit too expensive. But those are the type of things that we're looking at, and AI is going to be a really big thing within the public safety community. When there are different companies now that are coming out with different things to assist with what we do, and it's going to help with questioning and sometimes it comes in with the questions and and differentiating the answers. So that's one thing you have to look at now. But AI is a big one, and that's going to be really big.
Brad.
Yeah, piggybacking off of what Sebrina was just talking about, artificial intelligence, especially in our industry, is a really big term right now. We're hearing it all over the place, but there's different pieces of what that's going to be doing. And on the early technology, the things that are happening right now that I think are going to make the biggest impact and you're going to see the most value out of in the next couple of years is mostly going to be those transcription services, because those transcription services are going to be the basis of everything else we build on top of it. So getting good voice to text into your center from your radios, your phone systems, from your general conversation in the room, as that's getting better and better, we can use that with those AI and the generatives to start building different automations and assistive technologies for our staff. And, the goal of all of this technology is going to be, how do we make the job easier for the people in the seat to do a better job for their communities? And that voice to text already, we've been using it in one facet or another for a couple of years now. And it has been a game changer for us. For a small PSAP, I would go so far as to say it's doubled our capacity just for keeping track of what we're doing.
Yeah, so I'll echo that, and we've been investing very heavily in transcription, both transcription as a service, as well as transcription coupled with AI and the ability to communicate and use bridging language barriers. But if you think about the mantra, everything starts with 911. Everything downstream of that is dependent on the information in that exchange. And if you can turn every utterance of text and speech, or every utterance of speech into text and send that someplace, be it into a central CAD system, so it can be disseminated into the field or ingested into a Fusion and real-time crime center. And Fairfax is in the process of standing one of those up now. If you can use transcription to pull out the intelligence and the information in a way where it doesn't slow down the intake process, then great value there. Now tie in some of the things that Smart Response Technology is doing with their Delphini solution and incorporate context alerting and keyword alerting. Now it's not just about intelligence and information, but it's about call to action right now. And whether that's because someone said bomb or gun, or whether that's more of a semantic summarization of, this call taker position has dealt with several high stress calls in the last 24, 48 hours. Mental health point of view, which is something that the industry is talking a lot about, let's use AI, transcription, and everything in between to paint a bigger picture so that we can make it easier than what it is today in terms of managing increased call volumes and reduced staffing. The other jack.
People, and people. People make the phone calls. What do they really want? They want help. Do people answer the phone? What are they really trying to do? So I'm trying to get you assistance. We have all this great technology. We've got to make sure that we try to understand that this is, the standards is that we've got to make sure we call in. We've got to make sure we understand where they are. And then we've got to make sure we get the appropriate help to them. So how do we do that? And how do we get the technology to get them to help? And oh, by the way, the person that's answering the phone, we got to make sure that they understand where you're going. And oh, by the way, what the future holds. Everybody wants to talk about, next generation 911 is a great topic of conversation. What is it going to look like in the future? Just remember the people that you're going to be dealing with. A couple of projects that we've been doing in Arlington is AI. We've had it in place for the last 4 or 5 months. Does it help? Yes. Helps out dramatically. Takes care of the 911, the non-emergency calls, offloads, and sends it to a different place where technology is handling or managing that. Remote call taking. I helped build that remote call taking right during COVID. If I had one person tell me out of the nut, hey, it'll never happen. I've had 100 of them tell me out of the nut. It'll never happen. It'll never happen. Just remember those things can happen, and they should happen for the right reason. Just make sure we take care of the people that are answering the call to get the people that need the help. Technology is a great thing, but we still have to deal with people all the time. AI is a great thing, helps us a lot. Innovation is a great thing. We have a new one coming out called ZIP. What is it called?
Zero Interference Protocol.
Zero Interference Protocol. The show I have a new name. This is a no call transfer. So what we're doing in on the front end is when the first 911 call comes in, we're taking the phone call, entering the data in, and shipping the data CAD to the responding agency, so the responding agency can get a head start on this. So we're no longer transferring calls, and we're no longer have that opportunity to kill somebody. I tell this story a lot. Her name is Bishop, 27 years old. Died of a heart attack in the streets of DC. We would have transferred that call, she probably would have been alive. So we dial all the way back to people helping people.
Well, and if I can jump in there real quick, very really a lot of what we're talking about in all of this is that transfer and that movement of data. The transfer and movement of data is going to be so incredibly important to what we're doing that we need to really start looking at that packaged data piece. So when we start talking about EIDOs and JSON packets and everything else, being able to take a call and a video and your recording and your transcript and your summation and your AI assistive and put it into one package that everybody involved in that incident can be aware of and can move to is going to be massively important in the next couple of years. Because as we start getting new CAD systems, as we start integrating in the single pane of glass, so you look at all of these IoTs that you're playing with, as we start learning to package that as one ingestible object for our responders, for our dispatchers, that's going to be the game changer for us, is that you can get everything in one spot.
I just feel this opportunity. You know, I like to do these things. It's that one of the biggest problems we have is what? Location, right? Where is that person calling from? And again, with the technology, with the carriers, you have to work. We don't know any of this stuff. But we're the end users. We're the people that have to manage the stuff to get to the help of the person walking. So it's great work with industry partners. We have to work with industry partners. One of the cool things that we did on Tuesday was called Z-Axis. I call it the boogeyman, right? A lot of these things are the boogeyman that are out there floating around and should we do it, not do it, oh my God, and video that's coming in, should we do it, not do it, the boogeyman, Z-Axis. So we know that XY axis is flat. It's a screen that you say, and okay, there they are. But the next step in Z-Axis was there was a lot of people saying, oh, you know, Z-Axis, we've got it all under control. So I called some people out and said, well, let's see what Z-Axis does and what it can't do. So when the phone call comes in, XY, and then the Z comes in as a number. So we saw it the other day, it was just a number. It came in on a 2D flat screen. Okay, Z-Axis doesn't mean anything. It really didn't. Not until you tilted the screen up and said, okay, because in industry, we're pushing them. And then now the industry tilts it and says now Z-Axis in a 3D view, we can now see approximately that person sits there at this call. And then with the first responder side, where we have the first responders all have this responder app that's attached to them, we can actually watch them go up and meet up to the call. Probably one of the coolest things I've seen in 30 years. So that's
And before you, I know Sebrina raised her hand. So we're on the ingress side of Z-Axis through a partnership with a really innovative company called NextNav. One of the things I've learned is that what the industry calls Z-Axis isn't always actionable. So when you look at your device or your altitude, that's generally your height above mean sea level. Well, if you're out in Colorado, you're well above mean sea level. That's not really actionable. So the big push from an interoperability and standards point of view for the carriers is to start transmitting height above ellipsoid in the pit flow location data that's received when you receive a 911 call. Well, even height above ellipsoid is not directly actionable because it has to do with the curvature of the earth, and there's all kinds of math and science. Height above terrain is actionable. So what NextNav does and what we do on the ingress side is we take that height above ellipsoid and we use our partnership with NextNav to turn it into an actionable height above terrain. You know that device using barometric sensor data is X feet above ground level. Now you can plot it. Now you can generate an estimated floor level. You can visualize it, tie it in with first responders that have the same Z-axis data that they're transmitting. Now you have one incident command view where you can see caller and you can see responders from one multi-dimensional view. So making it actionable is the actionable step of really being able to take Z-axis and turn it into a data point that brings value.
Sebrina, go ahead. I'm going to see if I can bring us back to here for a moment. Sebrina, go ahead.
I'm just going to add one thing that we're actually doing now that I see this big thing that's been helpful in my agency is we are able to, when someone calls in and they don't know where they are, and then we'll take the video. But more than that, we'll ask them, okay, can I send you a link and can I control your phone? And so we can move the camera around, reverse it to them, to whatever camera we need on their phone. We have control of their phone. And so we just tell them to turn around. We can zoom in. We can do whatever we need to do to find those locations to help them figure out where they are. Or if there's something, we had a kid he went to a house that was under construction. He was under some panels. He didn't know what they were. So we had his phone and we went in, we looked to make sure he wasn't under something that the fire department would need more equipment to get him out of. And so those are the things that we have now that are available. And as we move toward other things, but this is where the current that we have can be really helpful.
I just say one thing. But
How many times is that? I don't know. Because I know Jeff, I should have taken a bet to how many times he's gonna say, can I say just one more thing? So, okay.
we, people taking care of people, we are the first responsible. Have to change, but we can't change the fact, because we gotta take care of the people that are answering the call. This great technology is great, but we still have to take care of the people answering the call, the first of the first. I just had to read.
I'm not gonna argue at all because I believe that's a strong sentiment and I agree with it 100%. So, but I heard a couple of things in the thread. One, I heard AI. And if I ask this group real quickly, what's AI mean? Okay, because I mean, and I'm a technology guy, you know that, so I can throw the buzzwords out every day of the week. And I could try to sound smart, and then the people in the room really understand it and tell me how I'm not. But I think one of the biggest things is when we start talking about these things, because the panel demonstrated it very quickly. We threw AI out, then we threw out location. And some of you went down assistive AI, some of you went down generative AI, some of you went down true location. But what it got down to in the end was two things. Giving the people, whether that is the people that you all are assisting or the people in your centers, the right information at the right time in the right way. And I know that sounds cliche and I could say that all day long, but where do we go with all these things and how do we get past some of the barriers? And I heard a couple, and I want to ask the panel, are there other barriers out there? Okay, I heard a little bit of, and Jeff, you alluded to it, but lots of data. Brad, I know you said single pane of glass. I'm sure if I asked everybody in this room, if we could give you everything you want on one screen, everybody would go, yes, please. The question is, how big would that screen need to be for what we're talking about? So from the panel's perspective, thinking about AI, thinking about location, thinking about actionable data, and I don't want to forget about the people in the mental health side of it. Okay, what are the barriers? Why is this so hard? What do you think the barriers are? Because and the next question is going to be, how do we start to work past those barriers? So I'm going to throw it out. Jeff, you want the first one?
No, man, I don't like to talk much. I'm a very quiet guy. I don't say anything, but the word no. Please stop saying the word no. That's just a barrier in itself. People take care of people. Bishop was standing on the street corner riding her bike and died of a heart attack. I don't know where she is. I can't find her. We can't find her. We do know the innovation does work, or how do we use it? Because the person needs the help, but then the person answering the phone does need to take care of it. So all this innovation that's going on, AI, that's a great question. What is AI? How do you use it? And if I were to go back to the remote call taking scenario, it's remote call taking will never happen. Are you crazy for sending somebody home to take home a 911 call? Are you crazy? Said yes, and I proved that yes, I was nuts. But it worked. AI at a 911 center, are you crazy? No, it works. It's for a specific time for a specific function. Are there barriers? Yeah, my world, we don't know the stuff. Call handling, the networks, AT&T, FirstNet, we don't know the stuff. We provide the gaps in the service and try to force the industry or push the industry, knowing full well that they have to make money. We try to push the industry into saying, hey, look, we have a gap here, we need to fill this gap. Not the other way around. Yeah, this cool widget gadget. It says, oh, I can fill something that you don't really need, but here you go. So it's making sure that we have the industry partners and collectively here is, of course, the industry. If I don't tell you now, and I'll try to tell you later, is that I challenge you, before you leave today, the one thing I learned while I was the DC operations guy and leave with somebody to point of contact, call them. Everybody should leave with somebody new, some new contact that you're leaving today that you've never met before. And I don't know who this person is, but you know what? I'm gonna call them later and see how they're chatting.
Sebrina, I'm gonna let you have a turn. I'm gonna let Sebrina go.
Just when you were talking about that, one thing I thought about was going back to the people, to our employees. I'm thinking about mental health. One thing when we were started getting the video, the concern was, well, I don't want to see a gunshot victim. I don't want to see a bad wreck. And that was one of the things that was a barrier where the employees, they didn't want to see those things because they were afraid that they were going to get that video. The other thing they were afraid of was that the citizens were going to see their face and they'd be out in public and their face would be seen. So we had to assure them that it was one way. We also had to show them there was opportunity to blur the video. And even if we as at the dispatch center blur the video, if police need the video, it's not blurred to them. So there was some things we had to look at as far as the mental health of our employees to make sure we mitigated that when doing that technology.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna cede it for Brad, because Brad and I have had this conversation. Two things, problem and solution. So when you think AI, it's a buzzword. Whether it turns into the next bubble, we'll see, but whether you're throwing AI at a problem or whether you're throwing something else at a problem, it's about the solution. So you can put any technology into a solution to address a problem, and AI is one of those things in the toolbox. And the forward-thinking way of the folks like Brad, Jeff, and Michelle popped out in Chandler, Arizona, we're asking, what is the problem? I'll give one example, and it's something that we're working on, that we're going to start kind of really understanding from the folks like Brad and Michelle. Staffing is a number one, pain point across the industry, which means you've got more frequent hold queues and longer hold queues. The call handling systems that are generally out there are automatically assigning. Next call goes to this agent based on these rules. But if you've got 6 or 7 people in a hold queue, you have no insight into what's happening in that hold queue. You don't have the information to say, well, maybe I should answer the caller in position 4 instead of 1, 2, and 3 first, because 1, 2, and 3, it sounds like elevator music. But the caller in position 4 is having an imminent life-threatening emergency. Great use case for AI to be able to listen, detect things. Ed said this to me last week. Transcription, AI doesn't understand speech. AI understands acoustics, and acoustics create speech or create things like gunshots, like screaming. So, really good use case of something that probably everyone has experienced, understaffed, people on hold, what's happening, that routine transactional in and out, we'll get to you when we can get to you, but what if you could answer call number 6 before 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because it's an imminent life-threatening emergency. So, Brad, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, so I mean, really, we're looking at 2 specific challenges that I see with everything we're talking about with the technology and everything else. The first piece is, when we talk about an AI assistive that's going to get transcript, that may be able to actually be a chatbot to talk to a citizen before we get a hold of it and provide information to your dispatcher, you're looking at several different systems that have to interoperate. And in order to start moving forward, we have to get open APIs. We have to get the ability to coordinate between softwares. Your phone system, your transcription services, your CAD system, your radio systems have to be able to talk to one another. And the companies that aren't allowing that are going to become inhibitive to the movement of what we're doing. The second piece is, we all talk about the staffing problem. We all talk about the location problem. We all talk about the supervisor problem sometimes. Those are symptoms of a management problem. We talk about being afraid of new technology or saying no. That is a fear because management is going through and trying to solve today's fire. They're trying to put out their fires every single day instead of looking forward and finding the new ways to solve these challenges. And until we can, one, like Jeff was talking about, identify the problem you're trying to solve and look for the best way to do it. And every time I speak, I talk about Deming's 85-15. 85% of the time, it's not your staff, it's the problem. It's management, it's processes, or it's equipment. And technology is that equipment piece. It's going to help you with a lot of those pieces, but that's not the only thing that we're going to be working on. And if we can't consolidate these resources, and if we can't figure out how to create an environment within our organizations that they are proactively accepting these technologies, then we're failing our staff.
I'm going to pull that thread just a little bit, because we talked about, in the first session, talked about legislation. So some of this technology, and I don't have to come up yet, but I talked to others, there's a hesitancy to go down some of the technology roads because there's legislation that might get you in trouble. So I'm going to pull a little bit of the thread of the other one of, we have to do some education as well to the legislatures on where the technology can allow you to go. And will they let you do that? Jeff, I know, because I was talking with Dave back when you guys did remote call taking, one of the big things that came up is, well, what if there's PII or CJIS information conveyed on that call? And the call taker's not, in this case, in the state of Virginia. Because BSP was saying that CJIS can't happen outside the state of Virginia. So how does that play into it? Oh. Yeah, so I don't want to lose the thread there, but there's education that has to happen as well. And Brad, you started to hit at it, but how many people, and I think I know the answer to this, but how many citizens do you think that you serve, if they call 911 and the first thing they got was a known chatbot? Thank you for calling 911. We'd like to talk to you about your emergency.
Won't happen. 911, I'll say no to this.
And I agree.
But again, what you propose is a part of this, screening some of these calls that way. So
Did I say what type of calls am I screening though?
okay, but I'm gonna,
I didn't know that screen the same type of calls, 911 versus non-emergency. We have a 5-to-1 ratio right now, non-emergency to emergency calls. Same people are answering, right?
yeah, but that's my point.
Wow, we put AI over the top of this and say, okay, and part of the learning environment, the AI and the chatbot was to say, okay, what's your main problem? We sat it over there and let's listen to it for 90 days. The non-emergency side, it's all about the learning the problem, and then they can spit something out and say, hey, here's your top 2 problems. And say, here. So are we really alleviating or addressing chatbots on 911? Here I go back to the boogeyman. Here goes the boogeyman one more time. Oh, AI is a boogeyman. A lot of these other things are boogeyman. No, they're not. We use the technology the right way. Oh, it works. But we have to figure out what the right way is and stop with the boogeyman stuff of AI and 911. Oh my God, it's the end of the world. We heard that. It's not.
Well, and that is very much the same thing we're talking about when everybody for the last 5 years has talked about video. It's been, we're scared to death. This is scary. It's going to hurt people. It's going to be this huge damage. And as we start looking at these technologies and start using them in the appropriate ways, what we're finding is they are going to be significantly more helpful than they are damaging. And like with our industry, or in my agency, as we're building out our AI and our assistives and everything else, we are actually doing it in a different model that we don't care if it comes in on a 911 or a non-emergent. We're going to use our staff as a filter first until the technology gets good enough to start transferring those out. So if we get a call on an alarm on a 911, we're going to transfer it to our bot. If we get a noise complaint on a 911, it's going to our bot. So it's not the type of traffic that comes in, it's what the emergency is, whether we're going to handle it in person or not.
But that's right.
That's the answer. I think it opens a lot more questions, and so I'm going to kind of follow with another one. So there's a level of comfort that has to come with this technology. I mean, the first one is, are you actually answering the problem that exists? And I think there's a lot of debate on where the problems are. Some people will say staffing. I actually talked to a couple of jurisdictions who said, is staffing your problem? They told us no, it wasn't their problem, which I was a little surprised by. But they were able to say that that wasn't their problem. They got into, kind of, Jeff, a little bit where you were going, I have so many solutions being thrown at me, but nobody stopped to ask me, what is my problem? So, I mean, and Brent, you mentioned it, Sebrina, I know you said it. How many times has industry stopped to ask our practitioners, what's the problem? But in the same question, and I'll flip it to say, but could you articulate to people what your problem is? And Brad, I'm going to key you up for the next one is, kind of starting to understand, well, what does all the technology mean? I know I'm picking you because I know the conversation, what Nina just tapped you with, as far as trying to put together a technology terminology thing at an appropriate level. So, and I think one of the other barriers is just, as we kind of demonstrated, what does all this mean? And how does it come together? We've talked about standards. Nina has the IDO, but what other standards or what other interface, Brian, you talked open APIs, but what standards do we need to address? How can we start to tackle this in a very tactical manner to get things going? So Brad, I'll let you start because I'm cheating, but I know what Nina just kind of asked you to start looking at, so.
Yeah, for me, it always boils down to what are you trying to do? What are you trying to solve in the first place? And for us, it was about hiring a different type of person, right? I wanted to be able to hire people that had the want and will to be there and had the willingness to learn and solve the problems for their community. So what are the things that I needed to solve to make that easier? One of them was I kept eliminating everybody based on their typing skills. So one of my goals in the next 3 years now is get rid of keyboards in my PSAP. If I can do everything without a keyboard, now I've just opened up my hiring pool to a different caliber of person that may not be able to type as fast, but care about their community. I'm also going to start looking at, okay, so if I'm getting rid of keyboard, what technologies around that do I need to do? And you start looking at this, oh my gosh, this is a big deal. I need AI, I need transcription, I need to be able to interface between my phones and my CAD, I need to do all these things. And there's a lot of barriers in all of that. But the biggest one is when I sit down at a console or I sit down in any PSAP that I visited and say, hey, I want to get rid of keyboards, the first thing everybody says is, you can't do that. The very first barrier that we're hitting with the industry, with the staff, with the managers is again, it's not possible. We can literally do anything with this technology, and one of the things that we're really trying to figure out now is that root cause analysis. What are the problems that we're actually facing and how do we fix those first? I think that the language barrier piece is a massive problem. It takes minutes, if we're lucky with live language translation, to get good interpreters on the phone quickly and to get information to dispatchable locations. If I can get a direct transcription of, say, for instance, Spanish into English, well, now I have some real information automatically that I can start using. And then we start moving from that point. What if it's direct voice-to-voice translation? Well, if we can prove that the transcriptions are working, now we can prove that piece. And then it's an actionable item that we can start using that is in real time. And it's saving minutes because a large majority of the non-English speakers that are calling 911 are not calling for noise complaints. They are calling because they need assistance with something major. And so some of the most inequitable parts of our job are easily solved now by technology. The problem that we're running into is that we keep saying, oh no, that's not possible. First time I talked about getting rid of an interpreter on a phone line, that's scary. How many people's heart rates just went up a little bit? First time I talked about it, I was like, oh my God, the lawsuits. And what I've realized is, you know what? We are giving a disservice to a large portion of our population by not doing these things as quickly as we're able to.
Sebrina, go ahead.
Brad, just something you mentioned with getting rid of keyboards, you're opening up our jobs themselves to a bigger audience than what we have now, because we have employees that have MS and they're getting to the point where their mouth works just fine, but their hands are starting not to work. So that opportunity opens up our job to opportunity of a whole lot more people that are capable of mentally doing the job. Physically, they can adapt. So this is a big process and a big progressive move forward for the ADA community.
Just jump in there real quick. The two of us have a the code. First time somebody tells me that, oh, you're old code. I'm going, well, old, I guess. My kids call me old. Guess I am getting old. And 40 years of it, yeah, I'm getting old. So I'm old. So one of the things that we've had to change in the industry and change at work is that we have these youngsters. I see you. I did a comparison one day at the 9/11 Center in DC. A desktop versus a handheld phone and everything. It's not very keyboard. It wasn't even close to what keyboard was an oxymoron. They look at you going, look, this is so old. Remember the phones that sit up on the wall and then they all look, see the youngins, they all have blank faces. They don't know what we're talking about. Get it? But the new ones, they can outpace us by the little handheld phone. And many people ban phones. The discussion that we had is that why aren't we using the technology that the youngins are using today? So how do we go back to how is the industry going to have to change? It's not my job anymore. I'm gonna go right off in retirement. Some people laugh. I know that it's the fourth time you've retired. Yeah. But yeah, retirement is it's soon. I can go right off. Can anybody dial the home boss and tell her I'm ready to retire? She's not letting me. So that's
That's a different animal. That's a whole different.
So we have to change, we have to manipulate. I just want to address real quick, heal the Pandora's box though. This is one of the things I grind on during the whole remote call taking process. We have these old archaic government laws or rules or anything like that. State police love to hate them all at the same time. Lord knows that was 40, 50 years with CJIS and the butt. Look, can we please change? Can we please change the way we do business and CJIS? I can go today and look up your criminal history and you're telling me to protect it. Seriously, people, we've got to change. You can't do this, you can't do this. Look, no. 40-year-old code ways of doing business, we have to get into the modern era. That would take.
So I do have to ask, because I got educated on this about 2 years ago. You do know what the current meaning of code is, don't you?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Keep you current. Sebrina, I saw you put your hand back up again.
No, I think that was me. My last thing that I really want to impress on everybody, like just piggybacking on that, we've got to change, is we're already building out the 5 and 10 year plans for our agencies, right? 5 years from now, you know, when you're going to be doing your hardware refresh, you're going to be looking at these things. 5 years from now, you will be hiring today's 8th graders. That is going to take a lot of change. That is going to take a lot of willingness to do things differently.
I can't reinforce that enough. How many of you have kids in here? And then you have a cell phone, you hand it to them when a couple of years back, you say, and you get the eye roll. So true. This is what we're going to be facing. You're facing, not me. You'll be facing this in the next 5 years.
And I'm pretty, so one of the upcoming panels, Jason Ganoza joins us from Clark County School District. He's the principal of a high school where he's got a course curriculum that is graduating high schoolers with the certification so they can enter the workforce. So to Brad's point, Jay, I'm looking forward to hearing kind of from Jason's perspective, because we've been out there to visit his center. It's the secondary, or it's the backup PSAP for Las Vegas Metro Police. It's a real live center with real live equipment, but that's the workforce of the future. And putting it in that perspective, my middle daughter's in 7th grade, and thinking, holy moly, but yeah, you're right. That is the workforce of the future.
So let me ask that real quick, and then we'll kind of summarize, but looking at the workforce of the future, and I've heard conversations about this throughout the industry. Do they expect the technology?
Yes.
And does that become a retention issue or other things as you go forward? So I bring that up because we keep saying technology, but we also keep saying people. The people are changing. Is the process changing? I've heard kind of both sides of that. Does it need to change? The legislation absolutely has to change to get forward. So kind of, and I'm teeing up the panel here for any little closing thoughts on, okay, so this massive world of technology with all these terms, with all these things that need to change, how do I start? What's the next step? And I know it's individualistic, but what are your thoughts? What's the key thing here? What's the key takeaway?
Lean forward into innovation and challenging the status quo. And instead of presenting all the reasons why not, consider the reasons why. And think about the pros and the cons, but lean forward.
People thinking there.
Right. Sorry, right?
Yeah, I started hiring a totally different way in the last couple of years. I have only lost 2 proficient employees in the last 2.5 years because of that. And one of the things that we did is we told everybody during their interviews and everything else that we were going to lean into technology. We are going to be proactively trying and testing and betaing and playing with everything we possibly can. And today, when we introduce these new technologies like transcription, we don't even need to do a rollout because they're like, what does it do? Cool, thanks. And they're running with it. And so my youngest staff members are propelling this technology push because then they're coming to me and saying, hey, what if it can do this? And I reach out to people like Jeff and I say, hey, Jeff, I want it to do this thing. How does that happen? And we try it and we test it and we do it. And what we found is that my staff are more engaged with their processes. They're more engaged with the technology than I ever expected them to be. And it helps with that adoption.
Sebrina.
Don't be afraid of change, especially as we have a younger generation coming on, but we have an older generation that may be in that management upper echelon of our groups. Don't be afraid of change. Change is the only constant we have. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid to change the way you think about technology. Don't be afraid to change the way you think about the job, how the job has gone. Because with or without you, it's going to change. Technology is going to change. So do you want to change with it or do you want to be left behind?
And I have a few minutes before lunch, and I know we're, talking to not be the panel ready to stop people from lunch, but any questions from anybody online or in the room? Oh, Michelle, go ahead.
So I love this conversation and I think that it's great, but I think one of the things that needs to kind of be discussed, and certainly not right now, but is challenges when you're working in government for funding and having to collaborate with other agencies like IT who are going to tell you that you can't do something or that is probably one of the biggest pain points, at least for us, is that how do you push forward those things that you want to do when you have to go through so many, even outside of do you have the money to do it, but can we get there because it's such a long drawn out process to have other agencies approving it or getting on board with the idea of doing something. And they don't have they don't have the knowledge, even though you're trying to be the SME and be the person who's advocating for this for your people. So I think that's one of the things that also has to be considered. And it's great to say, yes, we want to do this and to have the wherewithal to lean into it, but you have these other constraints that go along with it, which then, impacts the ability to hire people who are inclined to be, better at technology because that's their generation or whatever. So everything kind of builds on that. So getting through that, I think that's an issue that has to be addressed as well.
I can't, is that Sebrina or Brad that has her hand? I think it's Sebrina.
Just what I would say with that is, especially with smaller agencies, I think the private sector could come in, looking at grants specifically for smaller agencies and have packages that will fit the needs of those smaller agencies till they can, for them and for what their budget is. Another thing, we're like, this kind of goes in with what's coming up next, but we have an interoperability group with surrounding county and agencies where we're not using AT&T or FirstNet fiber or anything like that. We have fiber. It's a private fiber service, private fiber, and we buried ourselves. So we're doing that with the agency. So that interoperability, working with your agencies, who has the money, who has the people. One of our agency, another sister agency is building a bus, but they don't have enough people to fill it. We have the people, we have the tactical dispatch team. So we're going to work together, get an MOU. So it's one of those things you look at, see who has what, and what other agency doesn't, and you work on those MOUs to build those gaps together. And that you can make it a regional issue instead of a just a singular agency issue. It takes more work, but it'll be worth it in the end.
Right. Yeah. And I totally agree with that. There's grants and there's funding and there's ways to combine that. One of the things that we did, I'm a small PSAP. I have a $2 million operating budget. And we just started a $8 million public safety systems project over the next 5 years because we started finding ways to find them funding and two, saving the agency's monies. They were looking for some very costly solutions to some things like we had to move our PSAP and we were going to build a brand new 911 center. And I said, well, instead of doing one consolidated big center that's going to cost us in Aspen probably $15 to $20 million, what if I did satellite centers that now I have 5 different PSAPs that all interoperate and work at the same time, call takers here, dispatchers there. It actually only costs us about $200,000 to stand up one of these satellites. So instead of the $20 million bill that they were going to have to build a big giant PSAP, now it cost us $1 million. And I asked for 8 to do my other project. There's GPS solutions out there that cost $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 to get pushed to talk on your radio or these things. And there's companies out there that will do it for 20% of that. And if you start finding these ways to save money for your agencies as you're pushing new technology, it's going to benefit them. Maybe because I believe this is going to happen in the next 5, we're going to start getting over-the-top CAD solutions. So instead of spending $4 million on a new CAD, you spend $200,000 on a new over-the-top CAD solution that's going to use your CAD as a RMS, basically. That's a way to push new technologies with new interoperability with a cost savings to your agencies so that they are more apt to say yes as a chief, as a comm board than they would otherwise.
So I don't disagree with that, but I also don't want to lose Michelle's point. Because it's an important one of, in some of the jurisdictions, you've got the other entities that are outside of your span of control. Whether it's your IT support group, whether it's the procurement arms or whatever else they may be, and those are barriers in of themselves. Because I don't want to speak for all of them, but a few of them, and I know a lot of the Fairfax County IT folks are in here. I'm sure that they have all the budget they need and all the people they need to be doing their jobs. And they've got plenty of capacity to do all the extra work that's being asked of them. So it is a combining problem, and being able to look at some creative solutions are good, but it gets back to kind of an education and kind of getting everybody together. And everybody knows that in the room, but it is an important thing to take away. And I think that's again getting sometimes that engagement between all the parties. Being able to bring the industry in and realize that they're actually a partner as opposed to somebody just trying to create more work or sell a solution. We've got the right answer to the right problem, then people can get on board and do that. Any other questions, comments, anything else? I want to say thank you to the panel. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you all for your questions.